I'm Jack,
And I'm Brenden,
and we're coming to you from beyond the terrarium.
where DIY meets naturalistic reptile keeping.
Enjoy. All right. Welcome to episode number 6. Siete, is that how you say it in Spanish? Of Beyond the Terrarium?
So.
Maybe? Seis. Not siete. Siete is 16, maybe?
7, right? Yeah. I failed high school Spanish class, so I don't know.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, seis. No, wait.
No,
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis,
Siete, 7.
siete,
Yeah.
siete, ocho, nueve, diez. Nice.
Yeah. And
Nailed it.
like once, don't say something. I don't know.
We're just prepping for that South America trip one day. That's all we're doing here. Anyways, welcome back to episode number 6 of Beyond the Terrarium. I'm your host, Jack Oliver, joined by Brendan Meyer. Welcome, Brendan. How are we?
What's going on, man?
Welcome back.
You got me giggling already.
Giggling. It's gonna be one of those episodes. This is a boys only episode. We had 2 guests over the last couple of weeks, and we're gonna relax and kind of just chill out on this one. Talk through kind of what we've done over the past 5 episodes, and talk through a couple other topics that we got going on. So excited to get into it. But as always, I think we should just start with what's new, Brendan. I think we got to get a cat gecko egg update again, as always.
There they are right there. They're doing good, man. Yeah, they're so I have this big ass humidifier in this room finally, so it stays like 70 to 80% for the most part. So I think that helps a lot with like them not, because when they were upstairs they dried out, I think was the issue.
Okay.
I believe, I don't know, they went moldy. I guess they didn't dry out, but I don't know what it was. Temperature, humidity, something was funky up there and they just crashed. But these ones are doing good. We're like, what is it, almost a month and a half in?
Nice.
So
we'll see. That's good.
I don't know how long they go, but
yeah. What was like the longest time you had them going for before? Like before they crept out?
A month, I think, was the longest one. So these are officially like the longest fertile eggs I've had since getting into the cat geckos, which is crazy. It hasn't even been 2 years yet. Like I feel like I've had these things forever, but I got to keep like reminding myself that we're still in the figuring out beginning stages of things. So
yeah. Well, it seems like things are working right now. I can't wait.
Something's working. I don't know what it is, but something's doing good.
I think we need to schedule a podcast directly around when they're hatching, so we can do a live hatching. Who needs an unboxing when you can do a hatching?
Yeah, you'll see me cry on camera, so that's fun.
Be amazing.
No, that's like one of those things that's just going to be like the height of this whole thing for me when those things hatch, if they hatch.
So they will.
We'll see.
They will. We're talking.
I sure hope so, man. I try not to, like, every time I'm down here, I want to like crack it open and look at them, but I gotta restrain myself and not do that.
Yeah. So is the girl going again yet?
No. So from what I've read, the little information that I can get out of people and old articles and stuff, the gestation period is like 2 months, roughly. So it should be, if that's true, she should be laying in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Okay.
So we'll see. She's looking chunky, but I don't know if it's just me hoping she is or if she's actually getting chunky. But I mean, I should have had you send you that picture of her when she had the eggs in her. It's pretty obvious when they have eggs. So
I might have it. We'll see if I can get it up.
I
I think
know
we should
like
probably
sent
pull
me
some pictures anyway.
a group chat or
Um,
whatever.
we should probably pull up some pictures anyway because I think we want to talk through the cat geckos a little bit and what's going
Yeah,
on,
man.
set up, and like general care
Yeah.
for them. So I don't know if you want to just start into that and talk through some of that.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's very little information online. Um, there's a few people that are successfully breeding them like crazy. Um, and like when I talk to them, it's just kind of your generic. I don't want to say generic. Like I don't want to like talk. I'm not trying to talk down or bad about anything, but it's just like your very generic, like keep them like a crested gecko thing, and they'll lay crazy amounts of eggs for you, and it's no problem. And for anybody who's been like following my updates with them, that's not been the case for me at all. They've actually been very difficult to try to breed. So I went through a few different styles of keeping them, I guess. So originally they were in my bedroom because it was all my whole group was wild caught, so I didn't want them anywhere near. Excuse me, anywhere near any of my other stuff, just for obvious reasons.
Yep.
So they were in my bedroom. The humidity in my house is not great. I have humidifiers all over the place because I have plants everywhere. Jack's seen all my jungle in my house, but uh, so the bedroom was like very low humidity, like 40, maybe 50% on a high day, which I feel like was a detriment to them. And I lost, crazy enough, I lost only males. I lost like 3 or 4 males in the beginning when I first got my group. Um, so it was like, so I keep my house like 72 to 74 because my girlfriend is always cold. So I suffer through 74 degrees in my house when I would prefer it to be like 68,
Yeah,
but
man. Mine's at 68.
compromises when it comes to relationships, I guess. But so they were like mid 70s, shit humidity. So I'd spray them a lot. And in doing that, I would get like mold issues often because at the time I didn't have any, there was no bioactive substrate, there was no drainage layers. It was just dirt, and I would just spray the shit out of it. So a lot of mold issues. Like I said, humidity issues. They all shed fine for the most part. I still actually have one that can't do a full shed to save her life, but she's wild caught also, so it could just be something to do with that. But yeah, so I keep them in the, I think these are the 12, 12, 18 exoterras.
Are you
Um,
keeping pairs or single?
so, well, actually, let me back up. I first started keeping them in these. I don't know if I can kind of show these tubs here, like the tall, like 24 quart, whatever they are, tubs. Which they do fine in. I'm trying to get away from the tub keeping, as I've mentioned multiple times in this podcast. But so I still have like 4 of them in those tubs. They do fine as long as you cut the top out and put window screen in the lid, because low ventilation and high humidity breeds a lot of nasty shit if you don't know. So that was like the first lesson was high ventilation whenever possible, high humidity. Um, so yeah, the bedroom thing didn't work. I built these rooms downstairs in my basement. We refinished the whole thing. I have this room and then I have my snake room next door. Now that I'm having success is because of this room. Um, so right now it's 74, almost 75 degrees in here, and it's at like 73% humidity. It's humid as hell in here. I keep a humidifier running 24 hours a day, basically. So it goes between 70 and 85% humidity. Um, I was keeping pairs in 12, 12, 18s. I'm moving to do singular animals in a 12, 12, 18, unless it's for breeding purposes. just to give them a little bit more room and they're not on top of each other kind of thing. I know some people keep them in like large, like the what is it, the 20, was it the 2 by 2 by 18? Is that a size, an Exoterra? I don't know. I think it is. Um, you're muted, Jack, by the way. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
so
got one of those. Yeah, that's the size.
okay, so I know people keep pairs in there, and I just feel like I don't know. Maybe I might move to that. I don't know. This is all a work in progress still. But
Was there anything that you saw out of them that made you move to keeping them singularly, or like did you just decide to do it thinking it was better?
so there's a cat gecko group on Facebook that I'm
Okay.
in. Very rarely do people post in that group, unfortunately, and when they do, and when people ask for information, it mostly goes unnoticed and no one comments. So it's not a dead group, but it's very very little activity.
Hmm.
I posted that female in there because she looked like she had eggs, and then I came down the next day and she was like skinny, but I dug up the entire cage, no eggs anywhere, so I was kind of freaking out a little bit. So I posted a picture in that group, and a lot of the keepers there were saying maybe the cage was too small, having a male and female in there, and
Oh,
that they can reabsorb eggs if because they're like a high stress animal, in my opinion.
okay.
They need the requirements are easy to hit, but they require constant. Like it's got to be, not much fluctuation, at least for me personally, in
Okay.
the Midwest, in a basement, you know, where I'm at.
Gotcha.
But so that was the catalyst to me moving them to singular cages currently. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and then we can go over how I have the cages set up and all that stuff too.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna share my screen. I wasn't able to find that picture, but I found some cool.
I'll send it to you real quick. It's
Yeah.
actually it's a pretty cool picture. Yeah, so that is one of my very few captive bred. I believe that's a male. Yeah. So that's actually the one that I believe you and Zach got.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, he's
Nice.
huge now. He's doing fantastic.
Zach, so for the people who are listening, Zach, Queen City Constrictors, if you want to follow him on Instagram, you absolutely should. But Zach and I were at a reptile show down here in South Carolina, in Greenville, South Carolina. It's not a very big show, it's very small, actually. And the last thing we expected to see was cat geckos. So when we did, we called Brenden immediately, and he said, "Here's my card. Please buy it for me." So we did.
Yeah.
Um, Beautiful. But the video is just really cool, so I figured I'd show that. But there's the tub that Brenden was talking about.
Yeah, so originally those tubs had fake plants in them. I just, as of this weekend, moved all of that out and put pothos in all of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
That picture sent of that female too, if you want to pull that up. But
did you send it to the page?
yeah, yeah, I don't mess with these guys often. I'm kind of a very hands-off keeper for the most part. Especially with the cat geckos because they're so fragile.
Mm-hmm.
They're so like their legs are so tiny. I just feel like I'm gonna break them every time I pick them up. Um,
Felt like that too when I held yours. I was like, these things.
yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I do weekly to bi-weekly checkups on everybody. I do go in there and kind of get them out, make them walk around a little bit, just so I can make sure everything's kosher. But other than that, I don't mess with them much. I don't see them much at that. During the day, you're not finding one unless you go digging. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
So what's their like daily habits like? Like what are they doing?
during the day when the lights are on, they are sleeping. They all sleep in leaves. Every single one of them sleeps in a leaf. So when you like look up like on Google, you type in cat geckos, it says one of the first sentences is extremely arboreal, always in the trees, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, during the daytime, they are never up high. They're always on the ground, curled up in a leaf, like a cat, hence the name. and sleeping, and they all sleep in the same leaf every single day. They don't change spots. It's like they find a leaf they like, and that's their home, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
And I do have pictures of them in leaves too that I could have sent, but
It's all good.
again,
I'm googling them. It's
I can't.
funny. I'm googling here. I'm googling cat gecko. Um, this is going to be a very informal episode, guys. We're just talking and hanging out.
Yeah,
So
we're just kind of bullshitting on this one.
yeah,
So if you want to tune in on YouTube and just kind of hang out and watch. But see, like if you look at a lot of these pictures, they're in trees, right?
yeah.
And
But
every now and then you'll see one. Okay, that's like your stereotype. Okay, click on that one right underneath that picture of the one curled up.
like this one that I've got here.
Yeah, the one right in the middle underneath that one. Yeah, that one. That is exactly what they do in the leaf litter. And it's the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's
It's
amazing. Do they ever
yeah.
do this?
None of mine do actually. It's crazy. I wish they would so I could catch it and get a picture of it. But I do have one male who's a freaking psychopath. I feel like he'd be the one to do that if I could get him to do it. But
That's a crazy. That's a crazy look, man. It's like a dragon, like breathing fire.
yeah, I have been bitten by one of them though.
Really?
One of them's taken a swipe at me once because it was the one that I was talking about sheds bad. So her toe pads, the shed just won't come off. So I got to go in manually and do it. And she fucking hates it, dude. And she will bite me every time. It don't hurt. Like it's just like a little pinch, but because I don't think they
Yeah.
have like actual teeth.
Dude, look at this one. This one's wild looking.
Yeah, man.
That's like super pale and like
They
completely.
come in some crazy colors. Like I saw one. I forgot who sent someone sent me pictures on Instagram of like a super pink one, man, and it was crazy.
This screaming thing seems to be quite a common.
Yeah, I know, and I hate that I never get to see it in person.
So like when I went over to Brendan's place, and he was pulling them out, he pulled them out like probably three of them. Yeah, I think he pulled out in leaves.
Yeah,
And he just picked up the whole leaf and brought it out. It was funny because you can imagine like a leaf like curled over, and it's like bent um, like a taco shell, but not fully straight, and it
yeah,
like curves over, and they just snuggle up on in there and tuck themselves away. It's pretty cool.
and they do it every single night, man. It's pretty
Yeah,
incredible to be honest.
that's
So
all.
I'm curious to. I mean, at some point in life, I'd love to get out there and actually find them in the wild to see, because again, you don't. What the hell is that?
This is a carving.
Oh, that's pretty badass. Actually,
That's insane.
that's cool. But yeah, if you go like iNaturalist and stuff, there's a ton of pictures of them, but there's no information. So I want to get out there and see their actual like. Oh, that's pretty badass, actually.
You need that.
I
Sorry,
like
I'm
that
distracting.
a
If you're,
lot.
if you're listening, there's a phone case with a cat gecko picture
And
on
since
it.
we're on it, of all the reptiles right there, she is top notch. She breeds these guys like crazy, and I'm so envious of it because she has them dialed, man. So
She's
kudos to her.
also
She's actually
badass.
helped me out a lot. She's given me a ton of good information. So shout out to I don't know her name unfortunately, but of all the reptiles is top notch. And if you want some killer captive bred cat geckos, I think she has a bunch available currently. So
There's all kinds of merchandise.
they got all the cat gecko merch, man. They'll beat me to the punch.
Um, yeah, there's like you. I'm just scrolling through, and there's just so many different variations of these.
So
Uh,
if you stop, let's see, the second row, second picture, the one with the white on it, that one. So there's two different. I don't know if it's considered a subspecies or not, to be honest. Um, so there's the one on mainland Malaysia, right? And then there's this one who's on Borneo. I believe these ones are only found on Borneo. I believe the Malaysian ones are found on both islands, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
okay.
Yeah,
How do
so
you
these
oh,
guys are like more rare than the other ones in the hobby.
how do you
I have
tell them apart?
okay, so you see the white on the back of that one?
Yeah.
So the Borneo ones only have different variations of white. Like the picture underneath that one, the first one of that white stripe. Some of them have like really pronounced white on the background, on the right side of the page. Underneath that, yeah, that one. So some of them have some insane white striping, um, and it comes in varying degrees. But all the Borneo ones have that look. They're very orange instead of like that brick red color. They're very bright and they're actually prettier than the Malaysian ones in my opinion. And
They
then the
call
white
it
stripe
bold
is
stripe.
just what's that?
They call this one bold stripe.
Ah, don't be saying that now. Oh, they're calling that one a tiger, which is pretty funny. I just read the picture, but
Tiger.
yeah, but that one's the dorsalis. There's Felinus and then there's the dorsalis. I don't know if it's Felinus dorsalis. I don't know how they categorize it, to be honest. But yeah, they're. I wish I could. I wish I could get one out, but they're like tucked away. But dude, they are the prettiest. They're the prettiest natural occurring gecko. Look at that one. Look at that cat gecko.
No, they're insane, man. Like there's so many different variations of them. Like they all look very different. That's what I think is cool about this because it's not just like variation, but it's like this one is like insane. Like it's completely different. It's
Yeah,
like you've got a lot of these reptiles. Like you think of a natural ball python, like the
right.
pattern may be different, but you can't tell. Like you wouldn't be able to look at them and be like, this looks different. Like a normal ball python looks like a normal ball python.
Exactly.
Bearded dragon looks like a normal bearded dragon. Leopard gecko, same
Hmm.
thing. Like they're not variable in the wild, and I mean they are sort of, but that's what you get morphs from. But these aren't morphs; they're just natural variations, which I think is amazing. Um,
Yeah, these aren't like captive selective bred
yeah,
animals. This is like you go out in the wild and this is what you're gonna see.
yeah,
And
which
every single one is different.
it's amazing.
I just sent a bunch of pictures to the page of my pair and some other ones I saw just on my feed as I was kind of scrolling down there. But yeah, anyway, to kind of cover a little bit more of the yeah, there you go. So there's one of my dorsalis there.
Really
Um,
pretty.
so that one has a little less white. It's got a cute little heart on its back, which I think is adorable. But and then that's my original pair, the first pair I got, who gave me a few clutches, but they all went bad. Um, that female is massive, and then this just kind of shows the variation of pattern and color.
I like this one a lot.
This is the nicest one I have of that type, in my opinion. The pebble back
Yeah,
is fucking insane. I love them. I love them so much, man. And then
this is
this is both
Alice.
my Parador Salis. Yeah, man. So stoked. They're so pretty. Yeah, and if you scroll, yeah, there's I believe that's the female. She's super dark.
She's
She's
got
like
that
almost,
nice stripe.
yeah, she's almost black in color, and then she's got that bright orange head and the white stripes. She's fucking pretty, man.
Yeah, and like the side pattern, the flecks almost look like stars. It looks like the roof in a Rolls Royce. When it's got all those stars.
Yeah, man. But yeah, they're super cool. So right now where I'm sitting currently, um, I keep them on like a substrate mix that I. There's that female with the eggs in her. You can see them.
Yeah, she's plump.
She was chunky, chunky. Oh, and that's the. We'll talk about that in a minute. There. Uh,
I'm distracting.
yeah, I know. So I keep them so they all have a drainage layer now. I use the clay balls that everybody else uses. So they have a proper drainage layer, which kind of helps mitigate the mold issue. Um, and then I keep them on a mix that I mix up myself. 'Cause it's just cheaper that way. It's like Eco Earth, the the cocoa chip shit, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's how they market it. Cocoa chip shit.
Cocoa chip shit. They should. That's a hell of a marketing term. And then I got a bunch of sphagnum moss mixed in there. I do a little bit of play sand, and then uh, Jack got me on this worm casting kit, so I put worm castings and everything also. And then I fill the Exoterra as high as I can to the brim, as thick as possible. Um, and then like I usually sprinkle some sphagnum on top, and then leaf litter on top of that. So it like there's multiple layers of humidity options. And then they all have something to climb on, obviously, because they are an arboreal gecko as much as mine. You know, at nighttime they climb, I guess I could say, but they're active as hell at night. But I have one actually that he's in a tub currently, and he'll climb up and hang upside down on the screen every night, just all night long. He's just fucking chilling up there. So
That's interesting.
yeah, so really thick substrate, keep them humid. I spray them heavy, like heavy every other day because it's already so humid in here anyway. That's all I really need to do. I have a shit ton of isopods, springtails, everything, the soil. Like it's legit, man. They're doing well. Pothos in every cage that are growing pretty good. Um, and then I just have like Home Depot LED lights on top of them, 12 hours a day, and that's pretty much the care in a nutshell. Minus like the water thing with them is tricky if you don't know. Uh, they only use like reverse osmosis or distilled water with them. They're very susceptible to. It's like they call them calcium stones, but it's almost like a
A kidney stone?
like a kidney stone. Yeah, like if they get too big and they can't pass them, they can die from it. If you use like very hard water or anything other than RO or distilled with them. So distilled RO water only, no other water at all. Like I don't even chance it. I have two sprayers, two separate sprayers, one for the cat geckos, one for everything else. I have an RO system installed in the basement here, so I don't have to buy RO water because I was going through like gallons and gallons a week with like humidifier and like spraying them and all that stuff. So I have a whole RO system over here that I use. Yeah, other than that, they really are. I mean, they're not difficult. It's just they're frustrating for me because I'm still trying to figure them out. But that's kind of the fun of it, you know.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe it's just like now that you've got the room set up and dialed the way it's supposed to be, like maybe it's just the external environmental factors that kind of like were giving you issues. And now that you've got it dialed. So, I mean, if anything, that just, I mean, we don't want to jump to conclusions yet. We'll see if the eggs hatch, but like, if anything, that's just more data and more kind of information to show that like it's like regardless of how you have the enclosure set up, like the external environment that you're keeping them in matters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with like such a high humidity species like they are. I feel like that was like just the detriment of trying to breed them when they were. I wish I had these rooms when they were laying eggs, like you know, because they were like clockwork, man. Every 2 months they were laying a clutch of eggs, but they were just shit. They were either infertiles or they didn't last but a week or two.
Yeah.
And then like they're also all my breeders are wild caught, so I got to like take that into like they've been in captivity for however long, but they're still not captive bred animals. So I got to kind of take that into consideration also.
Yeah.
So I have another female that I'm gonna pair, I think this week with another male. I had her that the picture you posted or that you pulled up of the two together on that stick. I've had that pair together since I got them. And since moving in the basement, they haven't given me shit. So I separated them a few weeks ago, and I'm gonna throw another male in with her and see if I can get something going with her too. 'Cause I just
Nice.
have the two adult females currently. Everybody else is still kind of growing. So and they grow fucking slow.
Really?
Yeah, slow.
What's like how long do you think it would be for like baby to like breeding age?
Um, Man, I don't know. I'm sure. I feel like it would be. I guess it depends on how you feed them, right? Because in my experience, they'll take 2 to 3 crickets of feeding, maybe, and I do that. Like I feed every other day, but if I go in the tub and there's still crickets, I don't throw more crickets in there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I have some that they may eat twice a week, and they may only eat 3 crickets total. You know,
Yeah.
so they're so small as like a species in general that I feel like it probably take. I mean, I don't know because I obviously haven't done it yet, but I feel like it'd be a few years at least. I feel like it'd be 2, 3 years maybe. I feel it wouldn't be a stretch.
Do you think they're longer lived because of that?
Again, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
so little information about them, man. I have no idea.
Well, speaking of information on them, I found an interesting article that I'd like
Oh,
to share here.
there's some good ones out there.
Um, this is ontology of pronounced female-biased sexual dimorphism in the Malaysian cat gecko, a test of the role of testosterone in growth regulation. And male castration alone does not significantly alter growth. So they castrated male cat geckos for this
What?
study, which is kind of absurd to me.
Over
Yeah,
here.
this is
That's
an interesting study.
wild, dude. When was this done?
Does it say?
It doesn't say, I don't think.
Yeah, March 16th, 2013.
Wow, that's fairly, I mean, 10 years ago. That's fairly recent.
Yeah, this is a wild one. You definitely have to read this one.
Yeah, that's insane, dude. What the
It's
fuck?
just like such a wild study on something that like we know very little about, but
So let's
we
cut
just
their balls off and see if they keep
yeah,
growing.
yeah, like that's like the most absurd. Um, that's the most absurd thing ever. It looks like this was I don't know where this was done, but that's a wild,
That's
wild
actually insane.
one. But I think something we wanted to talk about was like researching
Yeah.
your animal, and I just kind of Googled cat gecko or Google Scholared cat gecko on here just to see what would come up, and of course this came up. But um, if you haven't used Google Scholar before and you're keeping a species that like is like a cat gecko or isn't, I would say, any of the core pet species,
Hmm.
like I would definitely recommend looking on Google Scholar, even if it's something like I don't know, like a tokay gecko that's relatively common, but I wouldn't consider that like a core pet species.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be a lot more information out there than what's just in the care guides and stuff. So, um, I mean, even your core pet species, like you could look up, but for a lot of things, like there just isn't anything. Like I've got some South American wood turtles. They're of the Rhinoclemys genus, and there's just very little out there on them. Like you can't even tell. The wood turtle or the Rhinoclemys genus is interesting because it's like varies greatly per species, like how aquatic they are. Like some are much more aquatic than others, and others are, um, you know, really terrestrial. So it's just really dependent on the species. But it's really hard to figure that out without going into stuff like this because there's just not a lot of information on them. But putting in a scientific name into Google Scholar just really helps. A lot of these used to not be free, but these articles, at least in my experience, have become more free over the last couple years. So you're able to actually read those. So this is taxonomy of cat gecko. So let's see what they say about dorsalis down here.
I always forget about Scholar, man. I need to actually like start using this.
Yeah, Google Scholar's great. I've found a lot of good stuff on here. We talked in the episode about Kevin. That I found out that they eat a lot of like bugs and scorpions and stuff like that through here. That you just don't get because in like a care guide because it would be in these scientific research studies. Um, going into a lot of like squamata stuff here generally. But here we go. Generally, they have slender bodies, fleshy eyelids, and a rounded tail. How fleshy are their eyelids? That
They're fleshy.
they're fleshy. Okay.
They're like,
Retractable claws.
look
That's
on
why
the,
they're called cat geckos.
what's that?
That's why they're called cat geckos. They have retractable claws.
Yeah, they do actually. I didn't really think. I always thought it was because the way they curl up, they like wrap their tail around themselves. But there you go.
That's crazy.
And they do with them being like a what is it called? A Eubiflarid or whatever the hell that group of
Mhm.
geckos is. They store a lot of their fat in their tails, so that's a very good indication of a healthy or unhealthy cat gecko. Is how fat that tail is.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same as like leopard geckos are in that, right?
Yeah, leopard geckos, Koleonyx, they're all kind of in that group.
Um, let's see. Let's see if we can scroll down here and just see what they say. Oh, there you go. There's all the euflarids.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're
Leonyx, Euflaris. This is leopard gecko.
yeah.
I don't know the other ones. I know Coleonyx and leopard gecko. Um, true eyelids present without spectacle, pupil vertical. I don't know the rest of this.
Which is another like thing people say why they're called cat geckos because they have a very cat looking eye,
Interesting. Okay.
just like all euliflarids do. But
Um,
it's funny too. I don't know if you remember Jack that one like climbing up your arm, but
yeah,
you can feel the claws, dude. They are gnarly claws for a little gecko.
they're crazy when they're walking on you. It feels very interesting.
Yeah, it's just like little pinpricks. It's kind of cool.
Lowland rainforests and peat swamp forests. See, like this is all really good information in here. Like it just
Yeah,
like
I'm gonna have to have you send me this so I can just read through it.
yeah,
Okay, primarily nocturnal, insectivorous, and arboreal. Oh, yeah, okay. Lowland to mid-level rainforest, often found on certain large fern-like plants. Which makes sense actually because the ones I have like real thick leaf pothos, they do really enjoy kind of hanging out on those leaves. So that tracks as well. That's actually pretty cool.
interesting. Foraging includes spiders and crickets.
They love isopods also.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've
They've
caught a
been sticking to
couple.
yourself.
I've caught a couple taking out some isopods every now and then. They're very like chameleon, slow moving. Also, um, which I assume kind of goes with the low metabolism, not taking in much food, kind of thing as well.
Interesting.
They're just such a cool species, man, and I hate that they're so obscure in the hobby because I think they I don't know, man. I feel like if people had a chance to be able to buy some captive bred specimens regularly, that they would really take off in the hobby as like a cooler because they don't require heat. As long as you keep them humid and semi house temperature warm,
Mm-hmm.
as a pet, they'll do fantastic. You know,
Yeah. It's
my
just
my struggles are just on the breeding side. Keeping
yeah,
them is like they're not hard to keep at all. They're fun to keep, as long as you get a captive bred one. But they're almost non-existent.
yeah. Um, there was something up here that said they were in India
Really, I didn't know that.
compared to the one found from India. I don't know. That was in 1864. So what constituted India in 1864? I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard them being in India. I thought it was just Malaysia, Borneo. Those two.
yeah, I think
Um,
several
there
cryptic.
is. I don't know if they're actually related, but they're distant cousin in Australia that we got to see at Tinley. Uh, The
Oh yeah,
chameleon. I don't know if they're actually related, but they look very similar. But they're from Australia, so they're a more um, rugged, I guess, species you could say.
yeah. Those are
I might
really.
get my hands on some of those, man, but they are talk about non-existent.
Those are the chameleon geckos, right? The Australian chameleon.
Yeah, the chameleon gecko. Yeah, they
Yeah.
look very similar to the cat gecko, and I almost shit myself when that dude pulled it out from behind a table. It's the only one I've ever seen, so I don't know.
There you go.
All
There's
right,
a
yeah,
front
there you
range
go.
map. So yeah, Malaysia. Malaysia's the mainland up here, and then this is Borneo down here.
Can you scroll in on that a little bit, possibly, so I can
Maybe.
read the? I know I have a Google Drive of like so many. So a lot of observations are in Sarah. Is it Sarawak? I'm assuming is how you pronounce that.
So, yeah.
So there's like a big national forest there, and if you go to INAT, a lot of them. That's where a lot of them are found.
Okay.
Um,
And that's like a country within Borneo, correct?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's like the northern country
This
of
area.
Borneo.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the northern whatever you call that.
Side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think of a word to. I don't know. I don't know where I was going. Where I was going to go with that, but
so I would imagine that there's like a mountain range here, right, in the middle of
um,
Borneo,
yeah, I believe so.
which would make sense why we don't have anything from the lower side. And then
Yeah.
this is what is this island here? Do we know?
Where's your? Oh, that I have no idea. I'm gonna be honest with you.
We're gonna have to pull up another map here. Our geography skills not looking good right now.
So I have a Google Drive uh, of just about probably not now, but a few months ago, every picture on iNet with the exact location they were found.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say 90% are in Sarawak. Um,
Okay. And are those all dorsalis?
no, so those are both Dorsalis and Felinus.
Okay.
They are mostly Dorsalis, but there are some that were Felinus as well.
So this is Sarawak up here, and then this is Malaysia, and then here's Sumatra. It's very surprising to
Oh,
me that there's none in Sumatra if they're in Malaysia.
yeah.
Very surprising.
So I've noticed. Um, I wish I should have sent you this Google Drive because there are some gorgeous ones in there. So a lot of them are in. Is it cut? I guess it's Kutching.
Yep.
I'm gonna butcher all these names, but Kutching, Sarawak, and Borneo. There are a ton of observations there, and I believe that's where that national forest is at, which makes sense. Um,
Just go to iNaturalist here. Explore. Oh, jeez. Zoom. Zoom and enhance.
I did find one observation um, in Batong, Thailand.
What?
I don't know. Uh, Yala, Thailand, wherever that's at. Um, but it was the only one I ever found. So yeah, you can see a lot of them are in that upper left section of Borneo.
Yep.
A ton of observations there in that national forest. Um, yeah, so Borneo seems to have more sightings than in mainland Malaysia.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because of like population or there's just more people there looking for them or stumbling across them, I guess. Um, God,
Okay.
yeah, look at that.
Can you see that? I can't see it.
I was just talking about just like the just where it's at. I gotta get there, man. I gotta get to Malaysia or Borneo or both at some point.
I'm just like I'm astounded that they're in Malaysia and Borneo, but not Sumatra.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Where is I'm terrible at geography. Where's Thailand in retrospect to these guys?
Thailand's like,
Up, right?
yeah, up here.
Okay, so I have in my phone currently, I'm looking at my Google Drive. I have one
Yeah,
in Si Bonpot, Thailand.
is it?
No. Is that Thailand?
Yeah.
Oh wow, so there's more now. Okay.
I think
Um,
it's just like it's like they're just going up here. I mean, this is really still just the same peninsula. Oh,
oh, okay, I see what you're saying. That makes sense then. I found two observations of them in Thailand, which I
yeah,
thought was kind of cool, being so north. That's far north from their range, you know.
yeah. I wonder if they're in Singapore.
Not that I know of, man. Not that I've seen on INAT at least.
Dave Kaufman did a video where he was herping around Singapore. And it seemed like there was a lot of like jungle out there. I just don't know. I mean, it's limited. It's all a city, but it'd be cool to go out there, man.
And you got to think like with these forests, like we were talking to Eddie last week about the blue trees. Like there's so much forest out there that there's got to be, who knows what's out there.
Yeah. For anyone who listened last week too, now that we've got a map up, let me actually go to just the map so we can show here what Eddie was talking about since we're on the topic.
Yeah,
Should have done this last week, but it's too into the
we're still figuring this out. We'll get there.
yeah. See now I'm trying to forget, but it was like
Uh,
this area. There's Saram.
yeah, there was a few different. Yeah,
Salmac.
I think right there. I think if you zoom in a little bit, I think that's the islands he was talking about right there. Those three or four. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
Raj,
don't
Raja.
remember. I wish I could remember which species he said were on each island.
This is Kofiau.
Yeah,
So if you're Green Tree Nerd, we're in the area now. I think this is it. But yeah, this is Batenta.
yo,
So that's the island where the blue trees are.
yeah. So that's a blue tree. The island south of that, the big island, I believe, are green trees, which is why there's such more. They're more prevalent because it's a bigger island. There's probably more of them or whatever.
Yeah.
I believe this was the Green Tree Island, and then the Yellows, or was it the? I think it was the Yellows. Was that Southern Island, and then the gold? What do they call them? The yellow spot, whatever.
Yeah. Something like
That's I think that's that tiny island because there's I think I could be
yeah.
I don't
Hopefully
remember.
hopefully Eddie watches this and corrects all of us, but
Yeah,
since we're in the area, I figured we'd go over here.
but yeah, man. So it's I don't know. I want to get out there.
Yeah, I mean just to like see what's going on. It's interesting they're talking about peat forests and like I want to look up like what a peat forest in Borneo looks like.
Yeah, I'd love to know. I did a lot of bringing it back to researching your animal. I looked up a lot of pictures of Borneo, um, and I got a lot of pictures that looked just like this. Actually, very dense, very wet, ton of vegetation.
At least fern trees. Wow.
Yeah, and I believe that's probably the ferns that article was referring to, if I had to guess. Yeah, man, there's just so much out. There's so much forest out there that who knows what's running around.
Yeah, amazing. All right, let's keep going on this article since we're here.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I'm down.
Let's see what else. Oh, here we go. Most vegetation consists of secondary peat swamp, which have been logged over 50 years ago, and now large areas of peat swamp forest destroyed for the construction of campus building and roads.
Typical.
Yeah, sad. But I mean, if you can think about it, like this is the exact same area that like short-tailed pythons are coming from. Like,
Yeah.
they're just hiding in this swampy peat forest, which is interesting. Dipterocarp forest. I don't know what that means, but we're gonna Google it. See, this is what you do when you're Googling and like trying to research your animals. You just dissect the article that's that it's talking about it and just try to figure out what's going on. So this looks like some sort of tree.
Yeah. And especially like an uncommon species, like you're
Yeah.
not going to find a care sheet. And if you do, it's probably going to be incorrect or outdated. So when you're reading these articles, you kind of have to use your brain a little bit and use your context clues to kind of figure out, obviously from looking at these pictures and reading, this is a very humid, very wet, very thick bush area that they come from.
Yeah.
So you're not going to put them on sand, obviously. You're not going to put a basking light on them. Like you got to kind of, if there's no care online, which some of these species that some of us work with don't have,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of just gotta try stuff out and hope for the best until you figure out what they like.
Yeah. And this too can help you like figure out like how you're going to style an enclosure like when you go to build it. Like we've got here, they're talking about um hilly sandstone with a unique assemblage of tropical lowland and hill forest. And then up here we got montane sandstone, limestone forest. So like I mean montane sandstone. Like you can look this up.
Yeah, Google is your friend when it comes to this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, this is all building, but let me see what else did they say. Montaigne's limestone forest.
And this is a big reason why I'm working on like building those like rock type backgrounds for all these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm going with the grays and like that.
There you
Exactly.
go.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I made a background and I forgot to share this in the episode we did of all my builds up to date, but I did a black tub with like one of those Python portal doors in the front,
mm-hmm.
and I did a very it was a rock wall, but it had ledges and stuff, and it had like cubbies for like when I first got my first cat gecko, and that dude lived in those cubbies, man. He loved
Yeah.
them.
Like this.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Like let's see if this loads. But this I am it would imagine like oh no. Okay. But like you can see in here, like there's all these holes and pockets. Like I can imagine like a gecko just hiding out in there, and you could easily do something like that on the background.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I'm working towards now. Like I always say, everything's always a work in progress. You always got to try to kind of one up your last build and do better. And that's definitely what I'm working towards on these backgrounds.
Absolutely. It looks like they used dead cat geckos for this because they were talking about ethanol.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then this is just scientific stuff. Some of the scientific stuff you're not really going to get anything from, but like,
Yeah, I don't have half those words I can't even pronounce. Yeah, it's just like, before you go, the slender toes are awesome. I want some of those so bad, man. That's actually not a slender toad, which is hilarious. It's cat gecko. But I wonder if they
there's
used to call them slender because the slender toes, I believe, are a completely different species.
There's a enclosure right there.
Yeah,
Look at that.
me and Christy are gonna start working on the next bill. We're gonna try to do an actual tree, I think. And if we can get that down, every cage is getting a fake tree.
That'd be sick.
Yeah,
You need to get some of these slender toes, man,
I
and bent toe geckos.
dude, Eddie. Again, I'm bringing up Eddie. He's been in my head, man, with this, with just how insane he is with those blue trees. He makes me want to just go head first into nothing but Malaysian geckos, man.
Yeah,
Because again, the slender toes, no one's breeding them. Nobody that I know of. You may get one or two captive hatched babies, but from my knowledge, I don't see anybody breeding them. And they're another insane Malaysian species.
yeah.
Just like all the Malaysian geckos, no one really works with them. It's just kind of I don't know why they're so
I want,
cool.
I want these.
Is that like the forest dragon or
Yeah,
whatever? Yeah.
those are sick.
I'm gonna say it, dude. Malaysian has the coolest geckos and lizards out of anything, in my opinion. They're just too cool. But I believe the slender toes get pretty big too. They get pretty large.
Yeah, there's like a ton of stuff in here, man. Like breeding the black-footed cat, Joffrey's cat. All right. Well, you can also get into that kind of stuff, like where you're all of a sudden in the wrong
Yeah.
stuff. But like, there's a lot of good stuff. You don't have to. It's not very hard. You just type in the scientific name and you just scroll and you read and you kind of ask questions, like what Brendan and I just did there. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so they're saying this. I have no idea what that means. Like, let me Google it, and then you
Hmm.
Google it, or you understand it better, or you get a new idea, and then you Google that, and like, you could go off of this and then like start doing Google Scholar studies on like or like searching for Google Scholar studies on like Borneo peat forests
Yeah.
and understanding the soil composition there. And
Hmm.
like let's look that up just for reference and then we can move on from this subject. But like I think that would be interesting to look up. Um, Mapping the characteristics of tropical forest peat and cultivated peat under oil palm plantation in Sarawak, Borneo. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here, but like you could just take out like what the humidity of the soil was and like
Yeah. I mean, you can go really deep, like as deep as you want to with this stuff.
yeah,
Um, and this is like you don't have to go this deep if you don't want to. But if you're a nerd like we are,
yeah,
um, this stuff is really interesting, and it does help. It does help kind of dial in captive care in a way. You're not going to obviously get down to the molecule the same type of soil, but you can try your best to get as close as possible.
yeah. And like I mean, this article was very unhelpful to me because it's just talking about like chemicals, and that's too in depth for my
Yeah.
knowledge. But like, you could keep reading through these, and then you could like re-engineer an exact replica of the soil that they would have in their natural environment.
Yeah. My
Plus,
ultimate. Go
okay,
ahead. No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, plus the limestone that we just found in the previous study, and then you get
Hmm.
a species list of plants, and all of a sudden you have an exact biotope of, um, their natural range.
That's what I was about to say. That's like my ultimate goal is to try to replicate uh, their natural habitat as close as possible and like do a legit biotope setup for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's always like that's the main goal I think of everything I have here. But
Do you know peat soil is extraordinarily flammable?
I did not know that.
Apparently, a whole forest burned down because of that.
I don't know where that is.
but this is the forest reserve you were talking about.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. Yeah,
Like,
that's where a lot of the sightings are of these guys,
yeah.
is in that exact area.
So like they're gonna break down like they're talking about everything mainly found in thick waterlogged makeup of in decaying plant matter, often flooded and swampy. Most of the peatland area covered by mud and transferable organic particle transferred by floodwater. So like silt and sand.
Yeah.
So like I'm sure if we continued reading this, we're not going to do that right now, but like there would be you could get enough to get a pretty close replication of the soil.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think the takeaway from this is like start by just googling the scientific name on Google Scholar and then asking yourself questions as you read those articles, and then all of a sudden you're reading about peat soil from Borneo,
Yeah.
and you're going to understand things significantly better than you did
Mhm.
previously.
Absolutely. I sent before we go off this topic, I sent you one more picture on our Instagram of what looks to be a mix of the Malaysian and the Borneo cat gecko that was found in Thailand that I have saved. How
Whoa.
insane is that? Isn't that wild looking?
Yeah.
Like everything from the base of the tail up looks like the Malaysian type, and everything on the tail looks like the Borneo type.
That's crazy. It's also like lankier than
Yeah, it's very, very long and yeah,
That's
kind of
interesting.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't mean we had to get off the cat gecko topic. I just meant the research topic. So we weren't.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, but
Um, yeah.
yeah,
That's a fun exercise. I think we should do that occasionally where we just like randomly research
I'm
an
cool with it. I love it. I love this, dude. I go down the rabbit hole often with these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I have a legit Google Drive of just about every INAT picture with like GPS location saves, like everything.
Yeah.
It's almost
iNet's
like
a super
at this point.
useful tool for researching animals. Like you
Yeah,
get to
it
see like
helps.
variation of what they are, the habitat that people are finding them in. You got to take it all with a grain of salt though, because it's not like somebody could be finding these animals, placing them in a different location that's best for the picture, and then
Right.
it
Yeah.
might not always be like where they were found.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. But you can at least kind of get an idea of like a roundabout area, and then you can type that area into Google, start looking at like we were just doing types of plants, what the how much rain they get a year, the humidity levels on a given day, temperatures. You can kind of which like the temperature and stuff is kind of iffy too because that's they're not taking the temperature of the middle of the forest underneath the canopy, but
yeah,
again, you take all that information, you pick out what is bullshit, what you feel is bullshit, and what you feel can be legit, and then you bring that back and start messing around with stuff.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I
And it's
got
fun to
something.
do.
I've got something related that I need to show now. Sorry,
No, you're good,
this was sent in our group chat the other day, and
and it's not gonna. Oh, there. So is this in? I'm assuming this is in New Caledonia, right? Or
what?
is this in? I didn't get to watch it. So is this in New Caledonia? Like
Yeah.
he's okay. I figured as much. It said crested gecko.
Can you hear the sound?
I just hear like it sounds like a sound machine. I don't hear him talking.
Okay. All if not all.
Okay. Hmm. That's actually kind of cool, though.
Yeah, so I thought that was super interesting just to like I mean, it would be hard for any of us to do this on like a lot of species, but if you're keeping anything native, like you can very easily go out and do what this guy just did. Like go look at the soil, go look at the branches, the leaves, the plants, like everything, and just kind of get an understanding of like what um the wild looks like for your animal and being able to recreate that or follow people like this was super cool. They went out there and actually looked for the substrate. Obviously, like you're not gonna put a bunch of rocks and a couple of leaves over the top
Right.
in a substrate in an enclosure because it's like it's not the same. It's like that area also is surrounded by rivers and the ocean, and it's naturally humid and everything like that. So we have to kind of um, adapt. Like you don't want to do just an exact replica of the wild because it might not work the same in your enclosure.
Right.
If you tried to, I'm sure, flood your cat gecko enclosures and make them like a peat bog, I don't think that would work very well for them.
Not
Even
at all. Yeah.
it's like how they would be in the wild. But taking it, not applying it exactly, but adjusting it to your setup and then going from there, I think is a super valid way of approaching it.
Absolutely, man. And it's like, a lot of these, especially like the arboreal gecko species, a majority of them are pretty high humidity areas that they come from.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it takes literally a little bit of digging on Google and you can find a decent amount of information on most species, at least enough to care for them properly. And then if you want to start, go on the breeding of the more obscure stuff, then it's going to be more of a pain in the ass, at least if you're me. But it's
Yeah.
kind of the fun of it, man. If everything goes well all the time, like it's fun, yeah, but you don't really learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I just was reading the comments. He said this was in Pine Island,
Oh, okay.
which is interesting because I immediately thought of lychees, and then he commented about the lychees, and apparently the lychees are much higher up in the
Yeah.
canopy. Um,
Chihuahuas too. Chihuahuas are on the Pie Islands.
are they high? Are they higher up as well? Or are they?
I don't know, actually. I know lychee's like top dog. I know
Yeah.
that. They eat crescent geckos and shit.
Well, I kind of imagine this like the anoles in Cuba. Like you got the crown giants, which are up at the top, and then they get smaller as they go down,
Yeah.
smaller and faster. So I wonder if it's the same there.
I'm curious how the newest species fits into that because they're a large gecko also. Like they're almost lychee sized.
Really?
Yeah, I forget the name off the top of my head, but they're a
Are
gorgeous
they
they're a gorgeous
brachycephalus or
gecko. Yeah, I believe so. I think it's like the newest, like most recently described species. I believe it's fairly recent
because
that they were found.
we're going back to find that.
Let's get back in there. They're gorgeous. They're such a pretty gecko, but they're
Are they
they're big.
the giant, the crested giant gecko?
Yeah, that's what it is. I think. If I
Or is
you
that the lychee on it? Let's see. You're gonna correct me because I don't know anything about geckos here.
as if I'm some sort of expert.
You are, man.
Um,
This is
that
the
looks like a
crested gecko.
weird crescent gecko, doesn't it?
It might be a crested gecko. What's the scientific name for a crested gecko?
I think it's ciliatus.
Yeah, that's the
Oh yeah,
that's,
yeah. There
that's
you go.
a gecko. All right. Well, this is crested gecko, so we can look at this. There you go. There's a cresty. So let's see where they're actually coming from.
Let's see.
New Caledonia, all the way out here.
I know they're. Man, I wish I knew. I wish I knew the species name off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's Isle of Pines, so this is where all the cresty. Apparently, they're rare on the main island, but Pine Island is where there's a lot of cresties. It's interesting seeing crested geckos in the wild. Look at them; they look so much cooler in the wild than they do captive.
Well, I know, don't they? It's kind of insane. Okay, I think I have. Uh, Also, for the people listening, this is obviously a very visual episode, so we apologize.
Yeah, we do, but also like you guys gotta watch the show. This is what we're gonna do. It's gonna be visual.
Okay, it's called the rough-snouted giant gecko. It's Rhacodactylus. I'm not even gonna try to. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that. Rough-snouted giant gecko.
Uh,
I may be wrong. It may be an older. I thought they just found this thing, but I don't remember.
how do you spell the? 1 second.
It's Trachy.
Oh, jeez, I lost it. Rhacodactylus.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who can't spell Rhacodactylus.
Rough skit. Okay, there we go.
Trach. It's Trachy.
I got it.
I don't know, just like 3 miles long.
Trachyrhynchus.
That's the
Trachyrhynchus.
one. They almost glow, man. It's
Okay, so they're on the main island.
and I could be wrong that they're recently described, but I feel like they're like.
Whoa,
Isn't that insane?
that's crazy. I want one.
I want one.
There's an eyeball shot. There's only 3 sightings of them.
Yeah, so
wild.
I believe they're either super rare or they're newly described. I'm not a big Rhacodactylus guy, so I don't really know. I'm not hip on all the stuff here, but
I think this is about to be a Rhacodactylus show.
I'm okay with that.
I think that might get us.
I do have them here, but
how do you spell? I had it spelled and then I lost it.
Okay, so it's just a very rare endangered species, apparently, from what I can see.
How do you spell Rhacodactylus?
Rhacodactylus.
Okay, I'm just gonna do the whole genus and see what we look at. Oh, jeez. This on a computer.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got a lot. We got knob-headed giant gecko, which that is.
What is that?
That's a gargoyle.
Is that a garg? I didn't know they call him a knob-headed giant gecko.
What's See, this is the difference between scientific names and
yeah.
Let's see. Gargoyle. Scientific name.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So that's a wild gargoyle gecko on some sort of clay substrate. It looks like it's trying to be a knob-tailed gecko.
And there's so many islands too that like. Okay, yeah, that looks more like a garg.
This is crazy. Look at the substrate that it's on.
Yeah, it's very like Australian type sandy clay like substrate.
Yeah. Here's a lychee. We know these. That's a Pine Island.
The coolest of all the racks, in my opinion.
Here's a Morrow Inlet giant gecko.
So that's the super rare one there. That's the giant snouted, whatever I said it was.
Rough snouted giant gecko.
Yeah, I don't know. I know of like one or two people in the hobby that have these. Um,
Yeah, those are super cool.
yeah, I don't know how we got on the video. I was about to say, how did we get on New Caledonia?
But this is I'm so interested in this now.
Yeah,
Just
dude, like INAT is such a good thing to know about. A lot of people don't even know about INAT, which is crazy. But
look at the hips on this thing.
yeah, that thing, them hips don't lie. That thing looks like it just dropped a clutch of eggs.
Yeah. There's it looks like gargoyles are like the most common.
Which is crazy because in the hobby, it's crested geckos that are most common.
Yeah. I remember seeing something though that like crested geckos were pretty much like extinct in the wild.
Yeah, there's another rough snouted one right there.
Yep. We looked at that picture earlier. Um there's a lot of there's lychees and there's another rough snouted. There's
I'm
reese's.
curious the hierarchy of all these species to one another, though.
Yeah, like how related.
Especially like the I keep forgetting the name, rough snouted, whatever it's called.
Yeah, here's a baby.
Yeah, it's super cool, dude. Look at that. Like I'm curious what the relation is between these and lychees, because lychees, from what I understand, are like I said, they're the top dog.
Yeah. And like what niches they fill in the
Yeah, I'm curious if these guys are like a more mid-level in the trees, like under the lychees kind of deal,
yeah,
or if they share the same areas.
ton of
It'd be
lychee.
cool to look into.
Yeah.
Yeah, get Dave back out there.
Yeah. Okay. So there's like a ton of Leachianus and gargoyle geckos. I saw something about there being Ragodactylus in Australia.
That's interesting.
Maybe I just read this wrong, but let me see. Australis.
What?
Oh, pseudo Ragodactylus.
Oh,
Pseudothodactylus. Giant
giant
tree.
tree gecko.
These are
Dude,
crazy.
I love this episode, by the way. I'm having a blast with geckos, man. That is cool as hell.
Yeah. That spiky bush. So many cool geckos, man. Um,
They're everywhere.
but this is fun, man. Like you can just go on here, look up a species that you're interested in, figure out where they come from. I think iNaturalist is great, especially for figuring out like exactly where things are coming from, and then you
Yeah.
can like Google those areas. Like we'll do one more here, just because we've got to do some snakes. Otherwise, this is just a gecko podcast, and God forbid we be associated with that. We're gonna do carpet pythons here because I love looking at.
Oh, no, I'm just playing.
But like when I was doing research on the enclosure I was going to build, I
Yeah,
looked at Mackey or McKay or Mackay.
yeah.
I don't know how you say it. But this is
Yeah.
kind of where I was like referencing. But it's interesting. If you guys have read the more complete carpet python, you know that they kind of separated carpet pythons into, or coastal carpet pythons into the northern and the southern coastal carpet python. Look at INAT. There's the split right there.
Yeah,
That's pretty clear.
yeah, it's pretty obvious.
Like you can learn this stuff just from iNaturalist ahead of time. But you can go in here, and a lot of them are in houses because that's what they do.
Which, how insane would that be to walk in your garden and be like, "Oh, it's just a carpet, no big deal."
Yeah, literally, be insane.
There's like a nuisance to these people, and it's wild.
Yeah, they call them crappets.
Yeah,
Um,
unbelievable.
but like, let me zoom in here on this area. There's some good pictures in here if I can find them. But like, go in here, you figure out where they come from. That's a very pretty one. Who needs a red? That's a red right
Hey, watch your mouth.
there. That's a beautiful carpet.
That's
But then
gorgeous, man.
then you go like you look up. I don't want to say the word again because I think it's going to be wrong. But you look up this town in
Mackie.
Queensland.
Mackie? I don't know. It's Mackie.
Mackay. Don't
Mackay,
know.
mate.
Mackay, mate. That's got to be
It's got to be.
it.
It just
So like,
sounds.
you can look at like this eucalyptus forest, or like, I just guessed that that's eucalyptus. I have no idea, but that sounds like an Australian tree. Um, or you can go in here and like, okay, so this is where we're at. Let's see, are there any like national parks? And there is. There's Conway National Park. So that's going to be like the most natural area in the um, area that you're looking, right? You look that up. Images. Like,
There
look
you
at that. Put some segues in there. But like, you got all these ferns and these rocks, and carpet pythons are almost always by rivers, so kind of use that as a reference. And then you got the color rock you can use.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's formed and cut, and you can like basically model that for your enclosure.
You have everything. You have, type of plants. You have the kind of rock, soil type, really, if you look, I mean, you can pretty much replicate all this stuff if you just look into it a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a biotope, obviously, but it's cool to get close and try to get some of those natural behaviors out of your animals.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you can do like temperature trends, and you can figure out temperature trends in a specific area, and then you can model. I don't necessarily know the ways to do this yet, but there's got to be a way. And especially as technology advances, like soon enough, you're going to be able to pick a place on your Wi-Fi timer or whatever it is, and sunset at the time that it's happening there, sunrise at the time it's happening there, temperature that is happening there. Like, you can do all this. It's not too far out. Just being able to start planning and manually set that up now, like, you can do it. And it's really interesting to look at and think through and research. And since we have all this free time, that we're not doing reptile stuff, it's a joke. Look at that cane toad, though.
Big ass cane toad.
Jesus, that thing's massive.
I can't believe how big they get, man. They just get chunky.
I've found them in their natural range.
Did you?
Yeah, in St. Lucia. It was really cool. I like seeing them there, actually. They're when they're supposed to be there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's cooler to see them where they're supposed to be.
Yeah. They look mean, though, man.
Yeah.
They look like the toads from Harry Potter.
Yeah, man. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple operation on how to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
It's funny, like if you start talking about these things to like people who don't keep reptiles, they'll probably call you crazy. But there's so much more that goes into this kind of thing than people realize, I think.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's part of the fun.
I mean, who else was looking up Indonesian islands on a Monday night?
Right.
Like, no one else.
Nope.
We're smarter than everyone else. That's why.
Yeah, man. Just a bunch of nerds over here doing nerd things.
But that's the cool thing, man. Like, you're gonna learn, you're gonna become a multifaceted herptile keeper. If I can say that, like, you're gonna learn so much else about the local environment to the animal that you're keeping, that it's gonna make you understand the animal so much better. And you're gonna put together like, like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but like maybe it's like an olive python in northern Australia that, like, once it rains, it spends like 3 weeks in a pool hunting because it's learned that, like, water's so scarce that when it rains and then it pools up in a puddle, that all the animals are going to come down to that singular puddle and drink, and it knows that a possum or something's going to come down there, and so it's just waiting. But like you've learned that like it developed that behavior because of the external environmental factors that are happening, like
Mhm.
the localized and shortened rain that
Yeah.
happens or whatever. That's a bad example, but like
Well, like, and also in terms of like captive care, if I never put leaf litter in these cages for these cat geckos, I would have never seen them. The behavior of them as soon as the lights turn on, they're running to their leaf that they've literally picked out to sleep in all day. If
mhm,
I didn't put leaf litter in the cages, specifically just to help the isopods and have like microclimates for them, I would have never. That would have been something I would have never seen. And do
mhm.
they do that in the wild? I don't know, but they all do it here, so I have to assume.
It's probably safe to say they do.
Yeah, I would assume that they do.
Yeah, especially the way they look. Like they look like a leaf. Like they're,
Yeah,
they're built for that.
yeah, and that was just something I kind of stumbled upon, but that comes back to the trying things out and see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. All of this is just idea generation. Like that's all
Yeah.
it is at the end of the day. Like you don't have to take any of this and actively use it. Like you can take this and be like, okay, carpet pythons, like they're going into people's roofs a lot, like in the wild. Like they actually tend to live around humans a lot. Like why do
Yeah.
they do that? It's like a food source and a sense of safety, and then you can build like I don't know, like a hide that replicates like the inside of a roof,
Yeah.
like and whatever. But it doesn't even have to be exactly that, but just like understanding that they're seeking out areas to wait and hunt for food and
Hmm.
give them areas to wait and hunt for food.
Exactly.
Understanding the core reason of why they're doing something based on your research and then be able to allow them to do that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and it's really that simple.
mhm.
When you really like break it down and get to the core of it, it's all about you know seeing those behaviors. At least for me, and I'm sure for you as well.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely, man. Absolutely.
But it's like
Um,
anything else. It's all trial and error. It's all just plugging something in and
yep.
seeing what happens. And if it don't work, take it out and try something else until you have something solid. Like it's taken me over a year to get the cat geckos to where I can get a single clutch of decent eggs.
Mhm.
And some people might get some and have great success off the rip, and you know I'm happy for those people. But for me, it's been an uphill battle this entire time of just trying to figure out what they like and what works for you know the animals where they're at. Because me keeping cat geckos in the Midwest is completely different than someone in California or Florida keeping them. So you got to take that into account also of where you're at in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And focus on like the results within your enclosure and within your room rather than like trying to replicate something else.
Yeah.
Like Brennan sprays his cat geckos every day, so I'm gonna spray my cat geckos every day. Shouldn't do
Right.
that. You should figure out like how often you need to spray in order to achieve like a certain level of humidity and then do that. Like
Yeah.
I think it's thinking outside of the box, thinking beyond the terrarium,
Hmm.
um,
That's it, man.
and applying it um, as you do so, and like not trying to have a recipe, but try to make your own recipe.
Yeah, and in terms of like the spraying thing, especially well, specifically with tropical species, I think a good indication to tell if you're spraying enough or not enough, at least for me, is like if you because these cages, the dirt's yay deep, 4 or 5 inches deep. Um, I usually just take like 2 fingers, kind of dig down in the soil, and if it's moist and damp all the way through and not sopping wet, you've hit the sweet spot of moisture in the soil. I think, at least in my opinion. And if you do that and you get down a couple inches and it's dry, then maybe spray longer, more often. you know, it's one of those things where it's very individual based,
Yeah.
room wise, not cage wise necessarily. Although it could be that too. Um,
Yeah.
even if you have a cage in your basement and one in your bedroom upstairs, like those two, they may be different.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into account.
I think that's where like researching soil could be interesting. Like
Yeah.
I was gonna say this and then I thought about it and I was like, maybe not. But like here on the East Coast, where I'm at in South Carolina, if you were to go into the forest and like dig into the soil a little bit, the first like inch or so is gonna be a little dry, and then you get into like moist soil, depending on where you are. It could be just clay and then whatever. But
Yeah.
like what you got to think about is like that's this area specifically. But if you were to go to the Amazon, for instance, and
Mhm.
you'd have to research this. This could be all bullshit that I'm about to say, but what I would assume is that if you were just to move the leaf litter aside, it would be moist immediately, not
Right.
wet, but moist immediately,
Yeah.
which is a little bit different. So it's just like figuring out like those kind of qualitative factors that you can research and then
Mhm.
applying those. And it's
Yep.
not that, like we said, like you don't need to it needs to rain every day because it rains every day in the Amazon, but it's like what does the soil look like and how do you replicate that?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. I think that's a
Yeah.
great
Just you can go so down like deep down the rabbit hole with this kind of thing.
hmm
Like we could sit here and talk for 4 hours just about soil, and
which
it's
I think we should do at some point.
I'm down with it, dude. I love this shit. This new mix I made is really working well so far. It's been only a couple weeks with it, but I'm liking it a lot, man.
Yeah. I
It
made a
holds
mix too the
well.
other day. Okay.
It holds humidity well. It's very aerated because of the chunky like cocoa chip in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't compact easy.
Yeah.
Like if you do a cage and you don't and the soil's not aerated by isopods or whatever, it just like keeps getting more dense, more dense, more dense, and then you go to like spray it and the water just kind of pulls on top. It's very, very
Yeah.
hydrophobic or whatever.
Yeah.
I haven't had any issues with this new stuff that I made. It's working well.
Yeah. I did one a couple weeks ago after I reset everything up, and I did uh, cocoa fiber,
Hmm.
charcoal, uh, worm castings, and some perlite.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything. It was mainly cocoa fiber, but then I added the worm castings just to add nutrients.
Hmm.
And I love it, man. I also added pine bark because it's a corn snake enclosure, and
Yeah.
um, the pine kind of fits the aesthetic.
Yeah.
But it's really nice. It's really fluffy. It doesn't compact like you were saying.
Hmm.
But it's not one size fits all. Everything works. It's just how you make it
Yeah.
work.
Absolutely. How do
So
you how do you feel about the perlite and substrate? Because I know it's a touchy topic.
I for snakes, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't include it in if I was doing like a turtle substrate or
Mhm.
something because they would be probably likely to eat it. They tend to
Yeah.
like to eat white looking small objects like that.
Right.
So I wouldn't do that in that case. But for a snake, I don't care. Because they're not gonna ingest it or something. I don't know anything about lizards, so I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
my buddy Eric at my local reptile shop, um, who honestly I would love to get on here because he's just a wealth of knowledge of like everything reptile. He'd be cool to talk to. But I was talking to him about it when I was at the shop last because I buy that Happy Frog soil for all my plants. And it's like all organic stuff, like it would all kind of work in an enclosure. So I was thinking about like trying it out in a gecko or a lizard cage or whatever. And he's not a big fan of the perlite and substrate specifically for the if they ingest it or whatever.
yeah,
But I have that potted pothos in the monkey lizard cage, and it's Happy Frog soil in it. And I feel like as long as you're like those guys, I specifically just solely tong feed now.
hmm
I feel like if you have something like that, because they're not ones to like there's some geckos, like leopard geckos are a good example where they use their tongue a lot. They lick things. The monkey lizards don't do that. So I feel
Yeah.
like in situations like that, it'd be fine.
Hmm.
And plus, with them being so arboreal, they're never on the ground anyway. So I feel like if I put it in that cage, it'd be okay. But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't know. I haven't tried it personally, so don't go throwing perlite in all your cages and come
Yeah.
at me. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's very situational,
100%.
species, just like anything else. But I
Yeah.
was just curious on your thought.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And like the snakes aren't doing anything to eat it. So
Right.
they're snakes. And there's a reason they use perlite in potting soil is because it's really great for aeration and it
Hmm.
is really light. So it's not like having to use like gravel or something like that, or even
Yeah.
charcoal. It's lighter than charcoal. Um, and it just like is really good for aerating the soil. So
Hmm.
um, it works, but just gotta use it sparingly or like in the correct usage.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
um, I want to get your thoughts, man. I want to talk about the podcast a little bit and like how it's gone so far, and like anything
Yeah.
you think we should be doing differently. And like, I also like we're gonna talk about this, but I want everyone in the comments to kind of put some suggestions in there. Um, Topics you want us to cover. We've got a whole list of topics we want to do. But if you've got other ones like or any topics at all, just let us know.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it, me and Brennan, or get a guest on, whatever. But
Mhm.
Brennan wanted to ask you, man, like what your thoughts have been so far.
Honestly, man, I love it. Like I'm having a blast doing it. I know we only had the two guests on, but I feel like I don't know, man. I can't. That episode with Eddie, dude, just kind of. I know you feel the same way. It was fucking phenomenal. Like it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of ignited a fire in both of us to really like put our all into this thing and really make it something cool. Um, I'm having a blast, dude. I think it's so much fun. I look forward to it every week when we get to sit down and kind of shoot the shit and record
Mm-hmm.
and the all the positive feedback we've already gotten is like just added fuel to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of like what I would add or do different, I don't know, man. I think we're doing a pretty good job only being, what is this, the fifth episode now?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're always going to keep getting better and keep. I'd eventually like to get a nice actual like podcasting setup with like a nice mic and stuff to make it as professional, quote unquote, as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, dude, I think we're killing it. I'm having a freaking blast. It
Yeah.
it really is a lot of fun.
I agree, dude. I agree. On that note, too, like if anyone's watching who does podcasts, obviously we're gonna reach out to some people too. But like,
Yeah.
you've got mic suggestions,
Mhm.
definitely put it down in the comments. We'd love to know that, or just message us on the page if you've got a
Yeah.
favorite mic that you want to use, because I think we definitely want to invest in some quality equipment as well. Um, but yeah, dude, no, Eddie's episode was amazing. I loved every part of that. Like I think it was like the epitome of what we want to do. Um, I think about it sometimes like the goal of this podcast, right, is DIY naturalistic care. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot of times we're talking about things that may not be DIY related, but I think the DIY piece of this is the ultimate work product. It's the output.
Right.
And there's so much in the research phase and the understanding phase and like everything you need to know in order to get to that step,
Mhm.
or will help you improve that step that I think we want to talk about. And like this episode is a perfect example of that. Like we didn't really talk about like specific DIY stuff, but it's a bunch of background information for how you develop your DIY enclosure, or like how you create enrichment for your animals,
Mhm.
or anything like that. And I think talking about it in a broader sense as well can be beneficial. Like we definitely want to focus on that DIY side because I think that's our lane and that kind of is what differentiates us from other podcasts. But I think also including some of that background stuff
Yeah.
is super, super helpful and interesting to me as well. So,
Yeah, and I don't want us to get like redundant on because you can only talk about a background so much, you know. So I don't think every episode needs to be specific DIY. I think it'll get old after just a few episodes doing that.
mm-hmm,
So like the guests help with that obviously, but like even like our one-on-one because like I have a bunch of ideas that I'm gonna start doing here soon in terms of like DIY cages. So like we'll definitely touch on those in episodes, kind of sprinkled throughout. But I feel like a lot of it is just yes, that research phase and that like it's not just at least in my mind, DIY isn't just building something at home cheap or as cheap as possible, I guess would be the right term. But it's
mm-hmm,
like the whole enclosure, the whole setup, the lighting, the soil. Like we just talked about soil for like 15 minutes, like
mm-hmm.
it's all involved. It's not just the backgrounds, it's not just building a cage. It's
Yep.
it's everything that is involved in that. And I don't know, I feel like to not touch on that kind of those parts of it will do everyone a disservice.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like, I think understanding all of this and learning about all of this is only idea generation. And I think at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal here is to
Yeah,
generate new ideas and
absolutely.
new thought processes and new techniques and communicate known techniques to the broader audience and um, learn about things that you wouldn't have thought of before and
Yeah,
go beyond the terrarium, go outside of like what's happening in your own reptile room or just more in depth into your own reptile room and like really think through like what's going on and how you can improve it. And I think it's a whole picture. It's not just building the background. Like
right.
we've got the episode. Like Brendan's episode was great on
Yeah.
background building, and there's a ton of other techniques, tons that we're going to talk about for sure. Like I would love to talk to somebody from the Dart Frog community who does
Hmm.
this, those backgrounds that are like a fiber material that it's like a mat almost, um,
Yeah,
like
it's like the
hydro grow or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I would love to
Yeah.
talk to somebody about that because I think that's super interesting. Um, like living walls, like um, all kinds of stuff as from a background perspective. And then, we
Mhm.
got to talk about cage building, like actual construction. I would love to
Yeah,
talk more about that, techniques for that. I think we could have an entire episode on building a door for an enclosure.
100%, dude.
I think that could be, we could talk for hours about that because there's so many ways to skin the cat. Like we talked about it being limited, and it is just from a DIY perspective, but like
Mhm.
there's so many different ways to do things. And I think knowing, picking which way to do it is entirely predicated on learning and understanding everything behind it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And
Ab
like I'll stick with the doors analogy for a second, right? Like these dart frog guys, a lot of times now, at least if you follow Troy Goldberg, who I'd love to talk to at some point, but like if you follow him on YouTube, like he does these Euro styles doors that have like specific vents underneath that are better for the dart frogs in some way. I couldn't tell you why, but
Mhm.
there's some habitat or some need from a environmental control perspective that he builds the doors like that. Um,
Yeah.
and so something as simple as a door that you don't think about having an impact on the environment or the animal, like there's a perfect example of it being impactful. And so I think really thinking about those topics in depth, just like we did with those research articles, and really just asking questions like why and what's this, and
Mhm.
asking. A lot of times you read something and you go, I don't really understand that, but got it. We'll move on. But if
Yeah.
you instead of saying, I don't really understand that, you ask, why is that like that? Or what does that mean? Or, and
Mhm.
ask those questions and try to figure out the answers to that. And all of a sudden I'm now a cat gecko expert.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Definitely not. But I definitely understand them a lot more after this episode, like I definitely feel
Me
like
too, dude. And I've been keeping them for almost 2 years, and I learned things. So I mean, you know,
yeah,
yeah, I think it's and like I said in the first episode, this is kind of a selfish endeavor on our part as well. I wanna I'm terrible with wood. I'm terrible woodworker, and I wanna get better and I wanna, eventually build some pretty large scale enclosures for some of these animals. So I mean, I'd love to talk to those guys who like the Serpas of the hobby that just do incredible cage builds out of glass and wood and all the intricacies of like the different tools. Even we could do a whole episode on tools for building a cage.
yeah. I'd
There's
love
just there's so many different limbs to the tree that we can
to.
explore that I don't think it's ever going to get stagnant or boring. We'll always have something to talk about in terms of the DIY side of things.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to some of the fish people who build the plywood aquariums too,
Yeah.
because that, like, I think will be super applicable. We've already
Hmm.
seen it. Like Tanner Serpa is doing stuff with Pond Armor, which is the same product that the fish people use to
Yeah.
waterproof plywood aquariums, and it's like that came from the fish side. So learning about that, and like maybe that could you could build a polydarium out of plywood. Like that would be super interesting to talk through and understand, because that would make things a lot more accessible to people. Because you could build an entire monitor polydarium.
Yeah.
Like you could do your mangrove monitors in a massive polydarium that you wouldn't be able to buy, or if you did, it would be super expensive. And like
Right.
you said, again, it's not cheap either way, but at least it's accessible.
Yeah. And then like on the aquarium side of things, like the lighting that those like saltwater guys use are
Hmm.
so leagues ahead of what we have in the reptile side.
Yeah,
Like I feel like a lot of that stuff we could kind of retrofit or would be applicable to some of the things that we keep on the reptile side too. Like
absolutely.
I remember when those lights came out that like mimic like the clouds passing over like the salt
Hmm.
water. I remember like first seeing those at a local fish shop that I had when I was a kid and just like how insane it was to my like 9-year-old brain that
Yeah,
someone can design a light that has like cloud coverage in it. It was
yeah,
just it blew my mind, dude.
yeah. And how useful would that be? Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine understanding, like, or thinking about like the behavior that would occur in something like a cat gecko? Like maybe, yeah, they're completely inactive during the day. When it's midday, full sun,
Mhm.
maybe they would come out if the clouds came out. Like, and it was just like reduced lighting midday all of a sudden. Um, like what would that change? And maybe it wouldn't. Maybe I'm just spitballing, talking out of my
No,
ass.
dude, I agree.
Like your Brettles that we talked about the other day. Like
Yeah,
how much does behavior change just by the light being different?
yeah. And and I know I keep going back to our last episode, but there was so much good information in that one. The dimmable those dimmers that he uses.
Yeah,
Like
we got
whenever
to.
he brought those up, I was thinking about like what if you had days where you had that dimmer and you only brought it up to 40 or 50% that day and it didn't get any brighter. It was to kind of simulate like an overcast day and maybe you spray a little heavier that day to simulate like, an overcast rainy day, what
Yeah,
that would do. I
yeah,
just I don't know, dude. This is the shit that keeps me up at night. I just
yeah,
lay and think of all the cool stuff that I want to try
yeah,
and just not even like yeah, it's cool to like show off that kind of thing, like the rain, the thunderstorm system that these guys use. Yeah, it's cool for us to see, but I feel like it's got to have some sort of impact on the animal.
yeah. Like I can't imagine what it feels like for an animal to be feeling the entirety of a barometric pressure that's going on outside of your house, right?
Yeah.
Than experiencing none of the effects of it. Like we've essentially completely removed rain from an animal's life, like actual naturalistic rain. Like we
Yeah.
missed, sure, but there's no barometric pressure drop that's associated with that. There's no lighting dim that's associated with that. There's no thunder or lightning. You
Yeah.
know, like all of these things that go along with rain. There's no temperature change. Maybe there is when you're misting heavily, but like if you're misting for 30 seconds or like whatever, the temperature change not isn't going to be there. You get a
No.
humidity spike, sure, but like I was watching a podcast recently where they were talking about collecting fish in the Amazon, and they were talking about rainstorms in the Amazon and the temperature of the Amazon River. You got
Mm-hmm.
to think about this, you know, because you got the Mississippi River, massive
Yeah.
river, huge. The temperature in the river, they said, changed like 5 degrees from a
Which is
rainstorm.
massive. That's huge.
That's a crazy temperature shift just from
Yeah.
a rainstorm in this massive. So you got to think about like what it does to like the jungle floor, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like that's an entire like sensation that we've removed from these animals' lives because it's frankly hard to replicate.
Yeah.
Imagine you could program your mister to turn on when it's raining outside, the lights to dim, the temperature to drop, thunder and lightning to go off
Yeah.
while it's doing it outside, so you get the barometric pressure as well on top of it. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, can you imagine like what the temp or what the reaction would be? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Could be
Yeah. No one does because no one does it.
yeah, could be absolutely nothing. Could have these guys could have been like, damn, I was enjoying not having this sensation, you know. but
Right. Yeah.
but it could be all of a sudden we're breeding animals that have never bred, you know, like maybe that's how you breed Boelen's pythons.
I was just about to say the same thing, man.
Don't know, but like no one's tried it because it's frankly it's probably pretty difficult. But with the technology that's coming out, it's becoming less absurd of an idea, you know.
I
Like
agree.
I can already change my lights depending on whether or not what time the sun sets.
Mm-hmm.
Same data point. It's just when it's raining outside.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not that far off. It's just having the technology we need to do it, which is coming quickly.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are people listening to this too that are like, why would I ever want to do that? And that's fine. Like if you don't have to be as deep into it as we are. You know, it gets almost annoying sometimes how deep in it I am because it's like just racking my brain all day long about all these different things and it doesn't stop. But I mean, it's not going to interest everybody, and that's cool. You know, a lot of people who have, you know, if you stumble across this and you have one or two reptiles at home, this is probably not something that you're ever going to try or want to try, and that's fine. But
Mhm.
things like this are for the super nerds like us who are just like in it full time. Like this is our thing. It's cool to think about, man, and it's cool
Yeah.
to like have something like that to work towards in the future. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool shit, man. I love it. I could sit here and talk about this shit all night.
No, it's continuous improvement. It is the substitution for needing another animal. You
Yeah.
know, like we have all this sense of achievement or sense of like we need something more from the hobby, right? Because you're just doing the
Mhm.
mundane everyday task and it doesn't feel like anything's changing, right? So you go buy a new animal and something's changed. Now your care, your daily routine is different, right? Or whatever. You get to post a new animal on social media, whatever.
Right.
I get the same satisfaction from setting up a new enclosure and putting the animal I already have in it.
Hmm.
Uh, Seeing a new behavior out of my animal, changing something, implementing a new routine into my care so that it alters the way the animals are functioning. It allows me to observe a new behavior that I haven't seen or whatever. It's like you don't need to go buy a new animal. You just need to try new stuff with the current animal, and you're going to have a new animal. You know,
Yep, exactly.
like
And I was stuck in that rat race for a while there, where I was, for a while, for the longest time, really, I wanted to be a breeder. Like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have rooms full of animals that I bred and sold. Right. That was like the goal originally.
Mm-hmm.
And like now, I like you guys in the group chat make fun of me because I'm always like, I'm ready to really downsize everything and just really focus on the cages and the equipment and the naturalistic behavior over the breeding. I want to be a keeper first
Mm-hmm.
now. Before I wanted to be a breeder first, which is why I had so many snakes. They were all in tubs, um, which is fine. Again, like if that's your thing, that's fine. But for me, it got to the point where I hated walking into the reptile room, because everything was in a tub. I couldn't see anything. There was no real natural behaviors going on, and it just got what's the word? I don't know. It got boring, I guess.
Yeah,
And
it gets stagnant, and that's why you need another one. You know.
yeah, exactly. And it was just like that thing of chasing the next animal instead of chasing a new behavior out of an animal I've had for years.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm really transitioning and have decided to really downsize what I keep here and really trying to focus on building the best cages I can with the best lighting that I can provide, and with things like the misting systems and the dimmers and the sunset and the sunrise and the overcast and bigger cages, better cages over just keeping things to reproduce them. I want reproduction to be a byproduct of keeping the animal well.
Yeah,
I think is what I'm getting at.
absolutely. And I think that's what ultimately happens is an animal is set up and thriving in such a naturalistic way that it doesn't even realize it's in the wild, and then it does exactly what it's programmed to do, which is breed, reproduce, and make more. Um,
Yeah,
I think some animals, are programmed to like breed and make more when there's bad, times because that's like a survival instinct, right? Like
yeah,
going through a drought, okay, reproduce so that the eggs will hatch after the drought and they'll keep moving on. But a lot of animals have such consistency in their lives. Like I think about bullens, pythons specifically. Like I don't imagine that environment changes much. They're so high up. I don't imagine they get crazy storms. They don't probably get crazy temperature changes. Well, they do, but from like the averages.
yeah. Right.
And so they're used to status quo, and so replicating that is how you get them to breed and making them feel comfortable because now they're in an environment that feels natural and they can progress with their natural instinct, which is to reproduce and make more. So
Yeah, and the same going back to the cat geckos. I basically gave up trying to breed them, and then lo and behold, I get a clutch of eggs out of nowhere.
yeah,
You know?
that's what happens.
Yeah. So that's definitely my like goal moving forward is less, because I don't know if like people realize I have a lot of animals here. Like it doesn't really seem like it, but I have 2 rooms full of things, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting to a point now where everything's in a cage, but they're still not to my liking. And to do what I want to do and to be where I want to be in the next 5, 6 years with the space I have available, like the downsizing is kind of the first step in the future of, and like we talk about all the time, and me and Skylar hail the scales. We have conversations about this all the time. We want to I want to really focus on just the behavioral side of things,
Mm-hmm.
personally. That's where I get my fulfillment in keeping these days is that side, because it's always changing. It's always something different. Yeah, dude, this right
Absolutely.
here.
Speaking of Brendan enjoying the behavioral side,
Yeah, man. So this may not look like a big deal to a lot of people, but this is a fucking huge deal, and I've been stoked about it all day. So this was earlier today. Um, I got some grasshoppers, dude, and these fucking lizards go nuts for some grasshoppers. So this female, when I first got her, these guys came. These are the monkey lizards for people who don't know. We went over this entire cage build in a previous episode. If you want to go watch that, if you haven't already seen it. So these guys came from Roy over at Well Springs Herp, which will be on the podcast uh, soon to talk about. He's going to give us a whole master class of these guys, hopefully. But when I first got this female dude, she wouldn't even look at me without she would just freak the fuck out. She would look at me, she'd run away, she'd bash her nose on the glass and all kinds of crazy stuff when she first got here. And I've had them just over a year, and she's finally to a point where, as you can see, she is bold as hell and will run out on my arm for a grasshopper now.
It's amazing, so cool.
Dude, I was geeking. I was trying so hard not to move because I didn't want her freaking out on me. But dude, oh, it's so cool. Look at that. She is just, she is a gem. I love her so much. And the male is he's just as friendly now. But he likes the grasshoppers. This girl loves them. Yeah.
So I would also just like to point out how amazing your beard is looking.
Hey, thanks, man.
Very full and voluptuous. I love it.
I've been oiling it a lot lately, and I think it's been helping.
Looks good, man. No, this
is the highlight of my this has made the entire year of never touching these guys unless absolutely necessary worth it. Because again, like I said, I'm a very hands-off guy with my stuff. I want them to feel as comfortable in. Personally, I feel like the less you mess with your animals, the more, I don't know if necessarily the more behaviors you'll get out of them, but they'll be more, I don't know the word. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
They're less afraid of you, that you haven't done anything to scare them.
Yeah, and it took a while because I had to move them from their old cage to their new cage. And for the first couple of weeks they were in that cage, they wouldn't even eat off tongs because they were I had to go hands-on to get them, and they didn't like it. Which is fine. It's understandable. I wouldn't like a big freaking bearded monkey to come in and grab me out of my cage either.
Mm-hmm.
Grab is not the right word, but I had to, I had to go hands-on in a manner that I didn't like to do, but was necessary at the time to move them. And they remember that shit, man. And they just got to the point where the lead off tongs, and as you can see in that video, she's kind of back to where we were before the move to the new cage. So I'm stoked on them, dude. I can't wait to that's a species that I can't wait to reproduce. And it'll happen when it happens. I'm not rushing it, but
I think it'll be pretty soon.
I would be lying if I said I was not excited for babies.
Can I pause it really quick? I gotta piss like a racehorse.
Yeah, because I have to piss bad too.
We're back. I'll edit this part out, but
I don't remember where we ended, to be honest. So
we ended with you talking about the monkey lizards, but I think we can just move on to a new topic. I don't know. What do you think? You want to keep going on monkey lizards, or?
I don't mind. We can do whatever. I mean, we're closing in anyway, so.
Yeah. You want to talk quickly about the new enclosures you did?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. So, Brenden.
Yes, Jack.
You have sent us some pictures of some new enclosure backgrounds that you did post episode that we did going over all of your enclosure backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are 2 enclosure backgrounds that we have not covered, so I think it's time we talk about those.
Yeah. So these ones are. I don't know if I want to let the cat out of the bag yet or not, because I'm not really at a point to do this.
Oh.
But these are drop-in backgrounds I would like to possibly maybe start making in bulk and selling, if people would be interested in that. I don't know.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm in the very, very, very early stages of that, as in I haven't started it at all, but it has been a thought in my brain. and I've had a few people be interested in it, so we'll see. But this cage is one of them, which is that one right there, I believe. I think that's the one. Yeah. So that's this Exoterra up here. Um, I mean, I think it kind of speaks for itself. I think it's pretty fucking cool, if you ask me. I'm biased because I made it, but it's your typical like purple foam board, spray foam on top, carved, painted, dry lock, acrylic paints, done. I did both of these in like, well, I guess it took 2 days because the foam had to dry and then carved it and painted it. So I did both of these in the weekends, and it was just kind of messing around and trying to do. I was trying to do like a rock wall, obviously, but I wanted like the cracks and the crevices and like the deeper cracks to really bring out some depth to the background. And I think I nailed it.
I think so too.
Ask me.
I think the lighting looks insane on it. I think it looks like a piece of rock. It looks amazing.
Yeah, and so I have a gargoyle actually in this cage. I was gonna do cat geckos, but the garg needed an upgrade anyway, so I threw him in there, and he absolutely loves it, dude.
You mean a knob-headed gecko?
Yeah, the knob-headed gecko, which is still weird to me, but yeah. So this is I built this background out of the cage and slid it right in, and it fit like a glove, man. It fit so well. So yeah, I would love to get to a point if I have the time and the means to. I'm not going to say make them in bulk, but make 8 to 10 at a time, maybe, and like sell them at shows or figure out a way to ship them to people if they want a cool background but don't want to make it themselves. I had to figure out the logistics of that and like
But
do it to scale. But
can we say this right now that if you have a standardized Exoterra that you want Brennan to make a background for, and you offer him a substantial amount of money or enough that he will do it, he'll do it.
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It doesn't even have to be a substantial amount of money.
No,
Like I'm not
sorry.
trying
Substantial was the wrong amount, but if the price is right, Brendan will do it.
and the price is probably lower than you think because like I'm not trying to make a shit ton of money on these. I want to get more reps in making them. I just want to be able to, and I think it'd be cool to sell, BM Exotics backgrounds. I think it'd be pretty neat,
Mm-hmm.
and just to see what people can do with them. Just use it as a base for people to build off of. I think would be pretty sweet. I've been talking to Christy, my girlfriend, about the logistics of maybe offering a few different sizes for a few different Exoterra cages. And then if that goes well and people seem to be interested in them, maybe possibly doing a few like larger custom order type backgrounds, maybe. I don't know. Because for those of you who don't know, I have a baby on the way in the next like 3 months. So my time's going to be very limited anyway. So I would like to offer a few, maybe like a handful, a dozen a year or something. I think would be pretty cool. And like I thought about doing a different style each set, so they're not all the same.
Limited edition.
Yeah, like the Supreme thing,
Mm-hmm.
make them like once they're gone kind of deal.
Yeah. I wonder. I wonder if there's a way we could mass produce these. We should talk about this afterwards.
Yeah, because I already have an idea on how I want to do it. But yeah, we'll definitely talk after this.
We should talk about this after the show. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want nobody stealing my ideas.
Yeah. I have an idea too. But
I don't give a shit. But I think it would be cool to offer some, even because like, like I said earlier, I don't consider myself a breeder, but I do breed things here. So I will be doing shows and stuff most likely. So I'd like to kind of diversify because no one offers backgrounds at shows that I've ever seen. So I think it'd be cool to offer a few different drop-in backgrounds cheap. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to make a ton of money on this. I think to cover cost and maybe make a little bit of money on them would be cool. Just to offer something different at shows and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be sick too. I think um this is further down the line, but I think obviously with the podcast, we'd love to have some merchandise in the future. We've got some slap stickers, which, by the way, if you're interested in those, we posted them on the story the other day. But if you're interested in those, let us know.
Yeah, they should be in the next couple of weeks. And I only ordered 50 for the first run. So if those sell out, we'll order more. But
Yep.
again, we're not trying to make a ton of money on this thing. We just want to kind of get our brand out there a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. But so we've got those out right now. But we'll probably have a website here in the near future. We'll look at doing some merchandise and stuff like that. But it'd be cool if we could sell Brendan's backgrounds on there as well.
Yeah, man, that'd be freaking neat.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to post those up, special edition ones and stuff like that, and maybe we'll have a giveaway in the future
Yeah,
that
that'd be cool.
Where we can look at doing something like that. Brenden is obviously very talented at this, and we went through your progression in episode number 3, but like anyone can get to this level, but if you're not there yet and you still want a background like this, you know, in the near future or now, depending on the price is right, Brenden could be your guy.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to. I don't know. I just think it'd be if people are interested. People may not want them, and that's fine too. But I think there's people out there who would like to not have to make a background, but still want something cool that they can just kind of
Yeah.
silicone into their already existing cage and kind of build off of it. You know.
Yeah, something that looks a little more natural than the standard Exoterra background that comes with it.
Yeah, and like I said, it'd be cool to do like seasons is the wrong word, but do like a set of like this style, limestone style.
Yeah.
You know, do a half dozen of them or whatever, and then do a red rock Australian type. You know what I'm saying? Just like
Yeah.
different, change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
as I get better at, because I'm no expert at doing this, you know, but as I get better, offer more intricate backgrounds and stuff like that. Which kind of gets tricky in shipping and stuff, but if you have twigs and stuff kind of glued onto a background in a shipping box, I don't know how well that would go, but that's all, you know, the intricacies of figuring this out. But yeah, I wasn't really planning on like talking about that on this episode, but it just kind of came out as I was looking at the background. So there you go, a little behind the scenes for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I think we should definitely do that. I think this brand, Beyond the Terrarium, generally is like a combination of Brenden and I, and I think we'll have to see how this goes and like how we set up the website and everything like that. But I would definitely love to be able to provide you guys with stuff that, you know, was produced by us, and you can go onto the website and, you know, that way it's just like a larger group to get from, and you know us through the podcast, so you know exactly who we are and know our collections and everything like that. So I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked on it. So yeah, I'm working on like I said, I'm in the very early logistical stages of that, but it is something that I'm working on.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So slap stickers, what are we selling them at?
I don't know. Where are we selling them at?
I don't know. What are we selling them at? We'll post a story with whatever we're selling them at. Again, not trying
price wise?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I figure like $5 because they're about that to buy. Like, so I figure $5 is relatively normal price for a larger slap sticker. So
yeah,
I think $5 is reasonable.
Yeah. So $5 gets you a slap sticker. Do we have regular stickers we can throw in there with them?
Actually, yes, we do. I got it right here.
There you go. So
it's really backwards, obviously, but there are like the normal brown stickers. I
Yep.
have a ton of those also.
So we'll throw them in there. If you guys don't want them shipped and you're going to Daytona, I can bring them to Daytona.
Yep.
Um,
And then October Tinley, I'll be there and I can bring them then as well.
there you go. So October.
I wish I could show.
Daytona.
This is going to be a little iffy, but I'm going to show. I already have it on my incubator, but I'm going to show the slap sticker for people who haven't seen it. Just because I think it's pretty neat.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it'll be backwards, obviously, but you get the gist.
It looks right to me.
Oh, does it? It looks backwards to me.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Never mind. Yeah, so they're like, was it 3x8 or something? They're pretty large stickers. They're pretty big. So I figure $5 is pretty reasonable. And like you said, if you buy one, I'll throw in a couple of the small ones too for free, just cause.
Yeah. Just so you guys have some stuff from us, and
Yeah.
we'll probably do some shirts and stuff in the future.
I like to do shirts and hats.
Yeah.
We're both obviously big hat wearers, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk to Uncle Smitty about that, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes in the future. But for now, we got the stickers, and if you guys want to support the podcast, and not even financially, because again, we're not going to make much money off of that, but just show your love and rep us. Like we appreciate that. So
we got a lot of things in the works behind the scenes that are pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we have ideas. Just like I said, give us some time. We'll get there. We're still in the very early stages of this whole thing. So
yeah. I'd love to have this is far in the future, but I'd love to have a meetup at like a show or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a Daytona or a Tinley, and set up a booth, purchase a booth and have an enclosure built off right there,
that'd be pretty sweet actually.
Yeah, we'll have a limited number of spots and have the same size enclosure. You pay to enter, and then there's some sort of free prize at the end. And I think that'd be super cool, fun.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
like fun. have them like pre-background, like everything in, so you don't have to like worry about making a background kind of deal. Or would you want to do that too?
Or you got 2 days in the show.
That is true. You do have 2 days in the show. That would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's something that they do at like fish shows. They have like an aqua.
Yeah, they have those like skate offs or whatever. Yeah.
So, I think we could do it.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think you could do an enclosure in one day, depending on what you're doing. Like.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, like I think of like Snake Discovery. I feel like they do all those in one day.
Yeah,
enclosure build off.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be sweet.
I think that'd be fun one day. I'm just spitballing ideas here, but
yeah, we got a bunch of them. So
I would definitely love to do a meetup. Definitely love to have a booth.
Absolutely,
eventually at a show, just to have a place for people who have the same ideas to come and hang out and chat and have drinks and snacks and
just network.
Take a load off. Like I'm thinking of like a booth setup where it's like a U, so you can come in and actually like sit down and like hang out for a second. Maybe have a recliner in there or something. I don't know.
Maybe do a live pod at the show.
Yeah. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think people would dig that.
Yeah, definitely. Just ideas. I mean, Brenden and I are very committed to this. This is only episode 6, but I think the commitment to the podcast game is very evident very early on. Yeah. And I don't think we would have made it this far already had we not been committed to it.
I would have already fizzled out by the third episode. I've been like, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah. So I think we're in it for the long run. And so I think, we've got a lot of ideas, and we'll definitely execute on them as we go forward. But
I mean, I'm literally planning to take some of my snake room space and building an actual podcasting setup. So if that's not commitment, I don't know what is.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah.
Have you started looking at chairs yet?
Actually, what's crazy? We just got this one from Chrissy's mom's house, and it's comfy. But yeah, I've been looking at chairs. chairs, a nice. I want to buy a nice computer and a nice desk, and
Yeah.
then
I always
we'll
think of Smitty when he's doing the pod and he's like in his recliner
be
smoking a
fucking
cigar.
yeah,
I'm like, that looks comfy. Yeah.
yeah. I have ideas. It's just gonna take me some time to execute on them. So
Yeah. But we're stoked on it. You know, I think the last episode was definitely a huge turning point for not turning point, but just like Brendan and I both finished that episode with Eddie, and just we were like, that was amazing. Like it went exactly as we planned it to, and just really reinvigorated us with this process and like what we want to get out of it. Like that episode had so much valuable information and so much stuff that maybe has been talked about before, but I don't know if it has in the way that we talked about it. And I just thought like this is going to provide value, if not for
mhm.
anybody else, it already did for me. And
Yeah,
like that's all that matters, you know. And so super stoked on it. Even this episode where we, had no plan to go into it, but we just talked and hung out. Like I think there was a ton of valuable information in it.
yeah, man.
Um,
This is very informative.
yeah,
And I know I said it at the end of the last episode, but what an awesome dude Eddie is, man. Like what a down to earth, humble dude. I love it.
yeah,
We need more of that.
yeah, yeah. We need all of that.
Yeah.
Everybody, if anyone can channel just like 1% of his energy, like
Yeah, man.
we're
It's
set.
infectious. I cannot I mean, by the time this is out, the episode's already been out, but as of recording this right now, it's not quite out. But man,
Yeah,
what an episode, dude. What an episode.
yeah. Um, I got one final note, and that's
Yep.
to potential sponsors. If you're out there, if you guys are watching and you have a brand that you think aligns with ours, let us know. We are definitely open to sponsors. Again, we're not trying to get rich from the podcast. We're not trying to make money, but there are expenses that go along with the podcast. So if we
Yep.
could help subsidize those while also aligning with a brand that we align with, Arcadia. We'd love that. So just definitely, let us know if you're interested. And like I said, you don't have to worry about commitment from us or consistency. Like this is going to be every week. So
Oh yeah, we're here to stay. That's I feel like that's obvious.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man.
yeah. Well, if anyone is still listening, I appreciate you. It's
First of
been
all, yeah.
so, so really appreciate you. Anyone who's been listening throughout the entirety of this, we really appreciate you guys. We see the numbers and just
Mhm.
really thankful that people are spending, their time, which is super precious with us. And we cannot thank you enough for that. So
And the numbers are climbing, man. They're every episode seems the numbers keep seem to keep seeming to rise,
yeah,
which is, I mean, you can't ask for anything more than that.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. So Brandon, any last notes from you? Where can the people find you? All that?
Yeah. So BM Exotics on Instagram. I say it every episode, but I live on there. So if you want to chat, if you have any questions about anything we've talked about in this episode and previous episodes, if you're trying to get the cat geckos and need some babies, I may have some eventually. Uh, yeah, BM Exotics is pretty much it. If you want to reach me, that's the best spot to do so.
Yeah. And then for me, just Jack Oliver _reptiles. You can reach me on there. But if you guys have anything podcast related, definitely message the page. Brendan and I are both in there constantly. So we'll definitely see your message and get back to you guys. And we just love having discussions. So if you guys have any topics you just want to talk to us about, like hit us up, man.
Yeah,
I'd much rather do that than anything else. So
yeah, and also if you are someone who like us builds your own cages, whatever, anything DIY reptile related, and you'd like to come on the podcast and chat, definitely hit us up because we are
yeah,
down to talk to anybody about anything. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. If you're a fish guy, if you're a lizard guy, you're a snake guy. If you keep spiders, I don't give a shit. If you make cool stuff, I want to talk about it, hit up the podcast Instagram page and we will set up a time to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we have said that we're going to get you on, please know that we are going to get you on. We're spacing out these episodes. We want to, space out some guests so that we're not every week having a guest and stuff. So if we said that we're going to get you on, we promise we'll get you on.
Yeah, I think we've kind of settled on every other week guest episode, right? And then like 1 week guest, 1 week us bullshitting like this episode. Next week we have a pretty awesome guest lined up already, so that episode will be pretty incredible too. And then so that's gonna kind of be the schedule. Is every other week we plan to have some sort of guest talking about something cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys one more time, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.